Ashley, you hypocrite. How dare you call yourself a creative BFF, but you use AI art in your thumbnails? What's up with that? How dare? Come on in, bestie. Welcome to StoryPod, where we do the doing of story development together. Brought to you by Creative BFF. That's what I'm going to be chatting about a little bit, along with, some other thoughts. I just want to have a little chatty chat a little bit about my thoughts right now on creative AI, specifically in the area of writing. And I do want to talk a little bit. I may touch on a little bit of my relationship with art and why I use AI art in my thumbnails, because I feel you. Okay, listen. But before I get to that, my name is Ashley. So the person that I was talking to, that I was calling a hypocrite, was myself. Okay. My name is Ashley. I am, volunteering as tribute to be your creative BFF. All right. Listen, if you have any story questions, because if you have come to this channel for any stretch of time, you know that I love answering people's story questions. It is like one of my favorite things to do in life. Okay. Because story is one of my deepest passions. Okay. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at ash@creativebff.com, or you can send me a message through the contact section of my website, creativebff.com. But let's chat a little bit. I don't know. This may or may not be an interesting video. I am not coming here with any notes, really. I just want to share my thoughts about it. It has been something that I have been intending to talk about for a while now. And what kind of prompted me to come back to this subject is that I got a comment on one of my videos where someone was like, you call yourself creative BFF, but you use AI art in your thumbnails. And I was like, I feel you. I wasn't even mad at it. I wasn't hurt, because listen, I've had the same sort of conflict, the same sort of inner conflict about using AI for creative endeavors, right? And I've kind of chatted in one of my previous, I feel like I've done more than one video on my thoughts on AI and stuff, but I know for sure I have at least one. And, I did talk in the One For Sure video or podcast that I made about my thoughts on AI, about how I felt some kind of way. Basically, I felt some kind of way about it. And that's still in me a little bit, but less so. And it does feel kind of hypocritical as a creative person, a dual creative person, both in art and in writing. And part of the reason why I use AI art in my thumbnails, practical reasons, would be that it would just take me too long to draw fresh art for every video that I put out if I want to kind of put these out in any sort of consistent pace, right? And for me at this point, it's like, if there's anything that I can do to reduce the chances that I make these videos take super, super long to get out, because I am kind of a perfectionist, when it comes to certain things, art is one of those things. And that's part of the reason why I kind of low-key don't do art anymore. And that's the other reason why I use AI art in my thumbnails, as much as it kind of feels like a betrayal of young Ashley, right? Because before I accepted or realized that I was a writer, and it feels kind of weird to say a writer, and kind of let story development take pride of place in my list of passions, art was the thing that I did. I don't know if I've ever talked about this. I'm gonna try to not make it super long, but I cut my teeth as a creative person on art. Both my mom and my dad were and are artists. My dad has passed away. My mom is thankfully still alive. And so I grew up in a house. My dad wasn't around, but my mom was very encouraging of creative endeavors and art and all that kind of stuff because she loved it, loves it. But, well, not yet. But I just grew up drawing, and I developed, I would say, over the years, a fair ability in art. You can check my art Instagram. It's Ash Guyot. I think it's just Ash Guyot is my Instagram. But if you want to just look on my website, my art website that is just kind of sitting there, it's ashguyotart.com, ASHGUYOTART.com. And so I was like, I'm a pretty good artist. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. Listen, I went to school, I went to college for animation and studio arts. And I just did it throughout my childhood and teens and into my 20s and into my 30s and stuff like that. But recently, within the last 4 years or so, I have all but stopped doing art, and I have had such hangups. I developed hangups and complexes about doing art, because for a long time after I got out of college and everything, I was really trying to make art be my career. And I think that what that did, putting the pressure of making money on art, what it did is it killed my ability to love doing art. And I took a commission in 2021, and it took me until 2024 to finish the commission. And the person was so patient with me. It was a commission to do the art for a children's book. The person was so patient with me, as it took 3 years to do. And I didn't expect it to take 3. I was like, this is going to take a few months for me to do this art. But the process of doing that commission with all of the little complexes and things that I was developing, the perfectionism and the pressure and, the fear around it, effectively killed my love of doing art prior to taking the commission. And I'm not blaming the commissioner, the person who commissioned it, and I'm not blaming the commission itself. What it did was it solidified issues that I had already been developing around doing art as a career. It drove the final nail into that coffin, right? And so by the time I finished doing that commission, I just had no more desire to do art. I have not done art for myself since before I finished the commission. At the beginning of 2024, I was like, I am not taking this commission. As we got close to 2024, I was like, I'm not taking this commission into 2024. I am finishing it. So I just grit my teeth and I grinded and finished that. And I turned it in the final pages like on January 1st. I was like, I am not taking this into 2024, and the pressure and the stress that it gives me, that I gave myself, that I put on myself regarding this commission. And a lot of that was just me putting pressure on myself. And that's why I never liked to do commissions. And if I ever get back to doing art, which I'm hoping, I'm trying to develop that back again. I'm trying to develop my love for art again. I don't think I'll ever take another art commission. I don't think that I will ever do art for anybody else but myself, ever again. And I won't do art for money. It kills it for me. Now, storytelling is a different thing, and I don't know why it's different for me, where, I don't know, it's just different for me. I feel like I could do it all day, all night, listen, paid, unpaid. I just love it. So, but art was different. There was complexes that I developed around art. So I'm trying to get back into the swing of art. I haven't picked up a pencil yet. I still kind of feel a little bit anxious when I think about drawing again, but I'm trying to redevelop that. But I've told people who have asked me if I would do art and things like that, like I don't do art anymore. And it made me sad to say that. So that's why I was like, I need to not let that be my story. My mom, who is an amazing artist as well, she has not done art since I was a teenager. She went to she did a graphic design course, did like a college, like a 2-year college thing in graphic design. I don't think she's done art since. But anyway, so now talking about AI and writing, right? So as you guys may know, I think I've spoken about this in other videos regarding AI and my thoughts on it. I have been working on a project with a friend of mine and a collaborator, and he brought me in initially to do art. So this was in that, 2021 when I was still doing art. He brought me in initially to do like character design for his thing. And then he had some changes in personnel, I guess you could call it, with the people who were involved in the project kind of changed. So now it's just really him. And over the course of those changes that happened, I then sort of switched over from doing art to helping with the story. And that's where I am now. When he re-engaged with the story, I think back last year, sometime 2024. Was it earlier this year? I think it was last year. I can't remember. Or earlier this year. We're in June. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I'm recording this in June. I don't know when it's going to go up. But anyway, so when he kind of brought me back into the project, because he had a little pause, a little hiatus for a moment, it was to work on the story with him. And he wanted to use ChatGPT, and he had been using ChatGPT to sort of plot out the story, and he wanted to continue using it. And so with me looking at him, that he's my friend, but also as a client, as someone who is basically retaining the services of Creative BFF, my goal is to also, work within the parameters of my client and what they want to do and what they want to use. And so part of what I was doing was finding a way to bring my creativity and my story development, my storytelling, and using ChatGPT as a tool to kind of brute force the words on the page and then use it, as a writing partner, I guess, primarily because he wanted to use it. And it's easy for me to kind of use him as the scapegoat and the excuse of, well, I'm only using it because my throat is dry. Please excuse me. I'm only using it because he wanted to use it. And while that is the primary reason, I will admit that I did see the benefit of not having to be the one to write the pages, because that would make the project take longer. He didn't want to take that long. And that also would have been some pressure on myself, maybe even akin to the pressure of doing the children's book commission or doing any commission in art. And it would just, I felt like those feelings would come back, that the pressure that I put on myself when I'm in that position to be doing a commission for someone, a creative commission. And so I was like, okay, well, it at least makes my job easier where I can do my favorite part, which is the story development. And then I can use ChatGPT as a writing partner to kind of just get the words on the page, right? And then tweak it from there. So that's what we had been doing. And that had been a lot of my writing, my actual writing, or not my actual writing, but the part of the writing process of the words on the page. That had been kind of my primary experience with it currently. Okay. In 2024, 2025, I hadn't really been doing writing my own stories. I've been more so, when it comes to stories, more so doing development stuff, working with people on developing their stories. I hadn't done writing for myself, right? So a couple months ago, a friend of mine, two of my friends, we kind of gave ourselves a challenge of doing a word of the day type of thing, right? And learning a word of the day, you know, like an SAT type of word of the day, which if you are not in America, it is, the SAT is a form of standardized testing that high schoolers go through. Basically, it's a standardized test. You know, it's a big end of year test that high schoolers have to take. And oftentimes your scores on that test will determine, you know, what schools, what colleges you can get into, what universities you are eligible for, right? I think that's how it is. I mean, I'm long out of high school, thank goodness. So let me know if anything has changed in that time, in these years, you know, these 2025, 2024, 2023 years, right? So she would present, one of my friends would present random words. And so with the first word, I was like, all right, now we have to use it in a sentence. And then I was like, you know what, let me do one better. Let me actually use the word of the day in like a short story snippet, just to try to help myself remember it more, right? And so I did that. And I did like a little Instagram reel or video, which probably is still up there, and wrote a little story. And my other friend who was involved in this, she really, really loved it. And I actually wrote it myself. I put the word, I didn't use AI or anything like that. I put the words on the page. I used my brain to write this little story incorporating the SAT word of the day. What was it? It was like, apotheosis was the word. So I wrote it, and when I tell you the contrast from using ChatGPT to write a story to doing it myself, to writing something for myself, and writing something for myself without the pressure of expanding it into anything other than, I didn't expect it to become anything other than what it was. Just a couple of sentences using this word, but in a story setting, right? And it felt so good. It reminded me like, oh, I can write. Because the thing about using ChatGPT, even though, you know, I was like, okay, I'm very confident in my ability. Listen, I don't want to be tooting my own horn, but I'm confident in my ability to come up with a story. Okay, I can come up with a story. It's my bread and butter. The brainstorming part, I can get a story structure going. I can knock out character development, all these things, which is why I want to offer it as a service, because I love doing it. It's fun. I feel like it's something that I'm good at. It's a service that I feel like I can offer to people who need it. So if you need it, hit me up. I would love to help you. But the actual writing part, I hadn't done in a long time. And you know, you just kind of forget. I just kind of forgot. Using ChatGPT made me feel like I was not able to write quality words myself. I wasn't able to put words on a page that felt beautiful, right? That felt satisfying to read if I was just, you know, reading it. And doing that little exercise reminded me like, oh, hey, you're a writer too. You like to write. You can do it. You know, I'm stopping short of saying you're good at it. I feel like I'm good at it, but listen, you'll let me know. Everybody has their own taste, you know, for writing stuff. And I do want to start on this channel bringing more of my actual writing to this channel as just, you know, whatever, you know, we do the work of writing, but then also, you know, do the work of story development, but then also like, let me give you a story too, because I do love storytelling. But let me show you some stories that I want to write for you. You know what I'm saying? But so doing that was like a breath of fresh air. It reinvigorated and what is the word I'm looking for? It reminded me that I don't need AI tools to be able to write, and that AI tools do not bring the satisfaction of creating something yourself. And I would say even AI tools are not at the level of being able to create something with the depth of humanity that a person can. And I'm not saying that I'm that person who's like the best at, plumbing the depths of humanity and really reaching into the heart of someone and creating something like that. I'm not even tooting my own horn that much, okay? But there are people out there who can do that, who write these beautiful things that change hearts and minds, that inform culture, that bring hope and love and entertainment, and all the things, right? And I don't think that AI is at that. It's good at, it can mimic, but there's also tells. There's also sort of an emptiness to it a little bit. There's not necessarily a heart. And that's no shade to AI or whatever. It has its place. I've seen some things that I've been impressed with. It can brute force words on the page and make them sound good, ish, but I feel for the level of excellence that I would want to achieve, I would feel like there needs to be tweaking that happens. I need to make it kind of fit more of my voice, right? So right now, the project that I'm working on with my friend is kind of like a combination of AI voice and my voice a little bit, right? I even did an experiment. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I did an experiment before I started this channel, or around the time of me starting this channel, to see if I gave ChatGPT writing samples of my writing, would it be able to mimic my writing style? And so I gave it a few tests to do. It analyzed my writing style, gave me some very nice compliments about my writing style. And then I gave it a test and it wasn't able to do it. Like, it gave some, semblance of a story. Because basically what I asked it to do was like, okay, take this story that I started, because I used to write short little snippets of things, which, I still kind of do. And I want you to continue it. Here's the genre that I want it to be in. And I want you to use what you know about my voice and my writing style to continue it. So, long story short, it was not able to mimic my writing style. It wasn't able to mimic my voice. Now, what it did do was it got words on the page, grammatically correct. It had some interesting little ideas, and it put dialogue on the page and whatever. But it wasn't like, it just didn't have the creativity, the depth, the nuance of a human writing, right? And I'm glad that we have not reached that point. So what I'm going to do, I feel like that might be all I have to say about that. So what I did, just to wrap up, was one of my friends really, really enjoyed the little snippet that I wrote. And so she issued me a further challenge where I would use the continuing words of the day to use the words of the day that we were still doing to continue the story. So use the same character, continue the story using the word of the day. And it was a really fun challenge. And now what we're doing, so what I did was I created basically I have 5 videos that I created that I have not put up anywhere. Okay. And I intended to put them up, and I'll probably put them up as individual YouTube shorts because that's how they're structured. But I will show them here as well, because what I did do was initially when I first made these first 4 or so little story snippets for the word of the day, I did them in Instagram, which is harder to edit, and I didn't have anybody reading it. It was just music and you had to like read the words on the page. And I did use AI art as the background for it. And my other friend was like, you should use voices for this. So what I did do, because I am not a voice actress, I am uncomfortable trying to do voice acting. Now listen, I plan on reading some of my cringy fan fiction for you. I had intended that to be like the first video that I ever made for this channel. But I just have a hard time trying to read with feeling, read it. And that's not a skill set that I have right now. Like, how I'm not like a voice actress. Okay. If you are, a voice actor or a voice actress and you are willing to like put your voice and read some stuff and record the voice for, you know, what is it called? Like basically like the audiobook voice type of thing for some stuff that I write, please hit me up. Let's work out. Let's partner together. I don't have a bunch of money. I don't know how much you charge. Okay. I'm not trying to get work for free, but you know, maybe we can partner on some stuff. I don't know. But, what I did was I did get some AI voices. That's an area I'm not touching. If you're a voice actor, voice actress, I'm sorry. I did not have the resource of having a voice actor or actress available at the time to read this. So please forgive me. And I did get AI art, but the words are my own. And I put them together in like a little thing and it kind of gave me a vibe, right? It's kind of giving me a vibe. And I have more of the story. So my friend really loved what I was developing. And so now we are basically expanding it into a full book series, like literally like a trilogy of books. I have more stuff written than what appears in the first 5 videos that I did. And we're not rushing the process. We're like, if it takes, 3 years to do, then it takes 3 years because we both work full time. She has a whole family, okay? Kids, husband, dogs, a business that she and her husband run. So it's like, we're adults with lives that unfortunately our money doesn't come from writing yet. So we will be kind of working on that as time allows. But I do want to show you the first 5 of these little videos that I created of the things that I wrote myself. Now, reminder, I wrote these myself, okay? I used AI voices and I used AI art and then I edited it together, in an editing program, okay? So these are my words, but listen, I want to show them to you. And I don't know if this video had any point, but it's really just to have a chat and to update you on my feelings about AI writing versus my experience with getting back into just writing words on a page myself. Talked a little bit about my issues, my hangups with art and how I'm trying to get back into it. And that's why I use the thumbnail, the AI art for thumbnails. And I probably, even if I do get back into art, I don't foresee myself actually drawing fresh thumbnails for every video because that just would take too long. Okay. I'm sorry. I love you anyway. I hope that you can still love me and give me grace. Anyway, here are the videos, the first 5 videos that I did for the word of the day challenge story that is now going to become, it's a whole trilogy for you to enjoy at some point in the future. Listen, I love you. I'm going to end the video here. The little shorts are coming after this. I love you. Have a great day. Drink water, breathe fresh air, get some steps, and I'll see you next time.
She sat, covered in the ashes of everything she held dear, and clawed at the dry earth until her nails broke and bled. The betrayal crushed her as she felt her idol fall like lightning and obliterate her world on impact. To her, he had been the apotheosis of power and truth. It wasn't long before her foolish heart built a shrine to him, at which she worshipped faithfully. She had become everything for him: rear guard, jester, lover, friend, and thought the place she held in his heart was secure. But in reality, she had been a tool in a game only he knew. She would have to kill him. And she wept. She stayed in that position, unmoving, until twilight, and finally night settled over her like a cloak. Her body was still, but her mind raced, darting from question to conclusion to disbelief. Why would he commit such useless, wanton destruction? The answers teased her, dancing in her periphery, just on the edge of comprehension. She rose slowly, allowing the image of fresh corpses and rubble to brand itself on her mind's eye. Where once modest homes and trees hid the horizon, there was only the darkening sky. Suddenly, a breadcrumb. Planets and moons stood out among the stars. Her eyes rapidly scanned their positions, calculations filling her mind. She didn't question their accuracy. It was one of the many gifts he had given her. abilities and enhancements that he could only bestow on another, never take for himself. The Grand Syzygy, his obsession. Even at that moment, the capital was abuzz with preparations for the rituals and celebrations that would commemorate a celestial alignment that only happened once every 300 years. At dinner, while on state business, after lovemaking, he would speak of planetary conjunction and opposition, the command it had over their planet and unseen realms. She had lovingly dismissed it as the eccentricity of a great man. The timing wasn't lost on her. She turned her back on the ruins of her past. He would be expecting her at the palace for the start of the festivities. She wouldn't disappoint. She ran through the night, faster than the thoroughbreds of the palace, yet without fatigue. Another gift of Lord Demetrius, Emperor and God-King of the apotheocracy. Her mind wandered as she allowed intuition to direct her steps on the shortest path to the capital. As the hours passed, her thoughts strayed beyond the practicalities of how she would enact her revenge to more sentimental memories. Recent declarations of love and devotion whispered into the stillness of night. Decades of hard but rewarding training under Demetrius himself, the moment he gave an awestruck 5-year-old orphan a name because she had forgotten her own. Aurora. He said it reminded him of the beauty of the heavens. She had worn it with pride and gratitude for the last 25 years. Now, it tasted bitter in her mouth. Who was she before Lord Demetrius had taken her under his vast wing? Who would she be after she broke that wing? In her distraction, she missed all the signals that she was being watched and followed. A novice mistake, and one she silently chastised herself for when her progress was abruptly interrupted by a small group of rough-looking men. Stand aside. I have business at the capital. She wore the insignia and attire of one highly placed in the Emperor's elite celestial guard. Usually that was enough to inspire fear or reverence, depending on the intentions of the observer. The ruffians only smirked. She was thankfully spared any boasting or threats as they immediately attacked. She parried their strikes and landed her own with an economy of movement designed to incapacitate rather than kill. After the initial group was subdued, she fought wave after wave. When one would fall, it seemed two would appear in his place, more skilled than the last. The sun rose, the dew dried on the grass, and still they came, sometimes 3 at a time, sometimes more. It seemed an inefficient strategy on their part. She could clearly handle small groups with no trouble, and she wasn't ashamed to admit that a large band would overwhelm even her. Finally, she began to reach her physical limit, and the strategy became frustratingly clear. They were wearing her down. She scanned her surroundings for a path of escape, but any gap she tried to push through was immediately filled. She was forced to keep fighting like a dog in a pit. The sun grew hot, and the last of her energy snuffed out. All it took was 2 blows to finally bring her to her knees. Rough hands grabbed her and pushed her towards a new man, one she vaguely remembered imprisoning years ago for his angry philippics against the Emperor. So even His Majesty's most pampered pet has a limit, though I am impressed by how long it took. A sharp pain in the back of her skull, and then all was black. Commotion outside his tent alerted Tarion to the return of the scouts. The fact they had not returned until late in the afternoon, and the camp had been all but emptied of warriors over the course of several hours, confirmed that sending Tavros was a wise decision. Thank God his veil sight had not faded with time. Tarion eased himself from his pallet, bracing for the shock of pain in his side that would accompany the motion. He moved to the front of the camp as quickly as his injury would allow, anxious to know the outcome of their mission and how many warriors they had lost. It chafed that he had to send his men to protect the encampment while he reclined on furs before a fire, like some overfed cat. It was only the argument that he would slow them down that had kept him on his bedroll. "Commander, we caught this bird invading our nest." Tavros grinned, their unconscious prize slung over his shoulder like a sack of meal. Tarion watched his warriors flow back into the camp, sums and tallies flying through his mind as he calculated their losses. When they closed the gate behind the last, Tarion could barely conceal his shock. There were no losses, none, only injuries. Tarion began the slow journey back to the captain's tents, Tavros matching his pace with ease. A battle with a single soldier that took more than 12 hours and required nearly every warrior under his command, and not one death. Tarion's temples throbbed as he considered the implications, though the return of all his troops indicated their captive had some sense of mercy. As Tavros hefted the woman onto a pile of furs in the commander's tent, Tarion cursed the sun, moon, stars, and the day he was born. This was no nameless grunt whose disappearance would go unnoticed. It had been a decade since Tarion had been a commander in the Imperial military, but he still recognized the marks of one of the Emperor's celestial guard, and this one had a few extra for good measure, which indicated she was particularly close to him. "Take her to the cave." Make her comfortable, but set up the wards. There were rumors among the men that the Celestial Guard could obfuscate the very tapestry of reality, as easily as they could the truth. Both Tarion and Tavros knew those rumors to be true. A double layer, Tav. He would take no chances. Awareness rushed in upon Aurora's mind all at once, and her body was taut as a drawn bowstring as she bolted upright. She first took stock of the state of her body, a habit from her years as a greenhorn, though she knew her accelerated healing would have already repaired any residual damage. Then she examined her holding cell. Her captors had placed her on a relatively comfortable pallet and covered her with furs. She wasn't shackled, but she was in a heavily warded corner of a cave. Details which indicated that they didn't intend to slake their lust on her person, and that they had some measure of fear of her. Good. The wards were an understandable, if misplaced, precaution. Her abilities were nearly all physical and mental, so the arcane barriers would have no meaningful impact on her ability to escape if necessary. She would keep that little fact to herself for a bit longer, however. Let them place their security in symbols and trinkets until she struck. She began to strategize her next course of action. It was a welcome reprieve from her grief. Footsteps drew near, though the person they belonged to was still obscured in darkness. Meager candles barely threw off enough light to see 3 feet in front of herself. She shook off the coverings and stood to meet the brigand, hands clasped behind her back, in the rigid posture of the Imperial Guard. Ah, up and about already? And in fine form. I should have expected as much from a Celestial Guard. The man who captured her stepped into the small circle of light. He was of medium height and slightly above average muscularity. All the various ways she could neutralize him flowed through her mind, as automatic as her next breath. She tucked those away temporarily and spoke instead. I see you've given up on your chaotic diatribes against Lord Demetrius and settled for life as a rebel. You remember me? The man playfully placed a hand over his heart. I'm honored. Tavros is the name. He reached across the wards to hand her a plate of bread, nondescript vegetable mash, and cold meat. She briefly considered breaking his wrist and beginning her escape. He seemed to note her hesitation. It hasn't been tampered with. A mischievous smile. Or are you plotting ways to do me harm? When she didn't move, he bent down and placed the plate on the ground, breaking eye contact and leaving himself vulnerable. He was either foolish or supremely confident. He stood, still smiling. At least try the bread. My wife made it. She used to be a baker in the capital. The best, in my humble opinion. They stared at each other for several moments, neither faltering. In the end, hunger and Aurora's trust in her body's ability to filter most poisons won out. She sat and crossed her legs in one fluid motion and began to eat. The man, Tavros was it, took that as his cue to sit and eat as well, pulling his own meal from a pouch on his belt. And he talked about his wife, how they met, their favourite pastimes, how they managed alone time in a camp where privacy was a rare luxury. It was mildly disorienting. When he finally took a breath, she spoke. You missed your calling as a filibusterer in the Emperor's Court of Fools. Sitting through the dull, hours-long sessions as the High Council argued would be a responsibility she wouldn't miss. Rather than being offended, he laughed. Perhaps, if the topic up for debate were the manifold charms of my wife. His open manner momentarily disarmed her. The bread, it was very good. Thank you. The compliment brought a new wave of praises for his wife's genius, giving Aurora more time to think. She was likely in the camp of one of the many rebel groups that popped up each year, with the goal of fighting against Lord Demetrius's centuries-long iron grip on the Empire. They were usually ramshackle bands of displaced peasants led by arrogant, inexperienced thugs, but such groupings were easily crushed. She had personally done so to some of the more annoying insurgents over her years of service, earning herself numerous bestowals of power from her master. But now that she was on a chaotic quest of her own, perhaps they could be of use to her. Though unlikely, the possibility was interesting.